Hey everybody, Charles Szczepanek here. Welcome back to the channel and to Beyond the Notes, where today we are talking about music I arranged from the Disney series Loki and a little bit of the process behind that arranging. So I've been really enjoying all of the movies and the series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe over the past few years. Fun little tidbit about me, I was introduced to this super late, so I've seen all 24 movies in just the last 3 years. That's hard to believe, but I totally missed it from 10 years ago or so. But now that I know about it, I am super interested and into all of the Marvel stuff. So when I heard that Loki was coming out as a series, Loki is one of my favorite characters from the films, and I thought, I've got to watch this. So I got on board and watched that as soon as it hit Disney. Fast forward about a month after the last episode of the season aired, and I thought, man, I really need to arrange some of this music for piano. It's cool. The music is really cool. So I picked out music from the opening credits and from the end credits, the Loki green theme and TVA. Part of the reason the music stuck with me so much is because I just think it's so interesting and it's so different from where Marvel has been in the past. I think Natalie Holt did an awesome job of really taking this series in a totally different direction, musically speaking. If you think back to what music in Marvel has been for the last 10 years, it's all like your typical superhero stuff. It's all orchestral. It's all got big brass lines. When the superhero comes in, it's brass and strings and, orchestral percussion and stuff like that. So it's all your typical stuff. And what Natalie Holt has done is totally turned that kind of on its head. So there's some of this like hybrid fusion of traditional instruments. So there's some like string instruments and there's some other orchestral type stuff, but they've been kind of messed with and tweaked electronically. And then on top of that, she's added all kinds of synthesizer stuff, which gives it's this neat bridge between what Marvel has been and also this kind of at the same time sci-fi, like futuristic sound. And yet at the same time, she's also captured this kind of vintage sound too. And it totally fits the feel of the series. It's got all of this stuff. There's some Marvel, there's some futuristic, and yet when you're in the TVA, there's this vintage, total vintage feel. And she's captured all of that with the music. It's amazing what she's done with the score. Every time I'm arranging something, it's coming from some other kind of ensemble, right? So if it's an orchestral thing, that'll be strings and brass and woodwinds and maybe some kind of percussion. If it's a pop song cover, that could be drums, bass, guitars, pianos, vocals. In this case, it's this interesting mix of some traditional instruments and basically some synthesizers and some sound effects. So anytime I'm arranging music that comes from a different kind of ensemble like that, my goal is to give the listener of the piano arrangement the same kind of immersive experience and satisfying experience listening as they get when they listen to the original soundtrack. So sometimes in order to create that means writing a whole lot of notes down. I'm listening to all the different layers from melody on the top through the bass on the bottom and all the stuff that's happening in the middle textures. I'm listening to all that stuff, and sometimes there's a lot of jumps between the hands, and sometimes there's really fast scale work or passage work or arpeggios. And sometimes though, it's much more simple. So in this piece in particular, there's examples of both of those things. There's examples of places where in order to capture the essence of that original, I've had to write a lot of notes, and it's a little bit challenging to play. And then there are other times where it might just be like a synth texture and one synthesizer playing a melody. And in those cases, it's super simple. It's just a really simple left-hand figure to give the accompaniment and one note in the melody. So anytime I'm writing, I'm not thinking I'm gonna make this hard, and I'm not thinking I'm gonna make this easy. The goal is 100%, how can I make the piano version sound as satisfying, as full as the original score? Of course, keeping it within the framework of what's possible to do with two hands at the piano, but kind of pushing the boundaries, not letting technique get in the way. So knowing what is possible to happen at the piano and saying, I'm not going to simplify for any reasons. I'm going to go for it when it needs to go for it. But I'm also, most of the time, unless I say otherwise, most of the time I'm not writing extra notes just for the sake of writing extra notes. They're all there because of some kind of musical reason that I feel like they need to be there to give the listener that immersive, satisfying experience. When I sit down to write an arrangement like this, it's kind of maybe a different process than you might think. So the first thing I do is I delve into listening to the music. I probably spend a considerable amount of time. Sometimes it'll be in the studio here, sometimes it'll be in the car, and I just sit and I listen over and over and over again. And not necessarily even listening for details or fine points or anything like that, but just getting myself in the mood, coming to understand maybe the underlying language that the composer was speaking when they wrote the original score, just getting a feel for it. And then I'll come to the piano and just start experimenting. So I'll have listened long enough, I'll be able to identify and move around the keyboard pretty quickly, kind of finding the key center, finding where different little bits and pieces are happening. I'll just probably spend another few hours just experimenting at the piano, figuring out, okay, this kind of texture that I knew was in the original, maybe here's one pianistic technique we can use to convey that. Or this thing that's happening in the melody, and it's not really just one note, but it's this combination of things. And eventually that turns into writing maybe the first 8 to 16 bars, fully written, fully fleshed out, but all in my head, so all memorized, basically. I haven't written anything down in notation. I haven't even taken any notes on a piece of paper, no notes on my iPad. Sometimes I'll even go a little bit further and dive into like the B section in the middle of the piece and say, okay, here's another chunk, and I'll experiment with that some. Then, finally, after all of that, this is probably 6, 7, 8 hours into the process, I'll come and I'll open up my notation software and I will write down exactly what I figured out or what I was experimenting with for those first 16 bars or that middle B section. So from that point, I'll probably just go from the last bar I wrote and continue listening to the original recording over and over and over again, but I'll go forward and write bar by bar, line by line. But sometimes I find that when I start to get into actually notating rhythms out and notes out and figuring out just like, what voice is this in and how does it need to go on paper, that can take so much thought and it can take so much away from the creative process. So that's one of the big reasons why I like doing that experimenting and then writing that down kind of separate, writing those first 16 bars down separately. I feel like that not only do I capture the essence of what I'm looking to create in the arrangement that way, but it gives me this reference, this point where I can go back to and say, this is how I was feeling about it before the notation got in the way, before I was thinking about how many 30-second notes are there in a quarter note, right? If this run has 12 notes or it has 13 notes or 9 notes, is it 9 notes in every 2/8 notes or is it 9 notes in every 2 quarter notes or whatever? It can be really complicated and it can take minutes actually sometimes. It can take a long time to figure out, especially some of the runs, how do they get notated? So having this point of reference to kind of ground me and lock me back into my purpose, the original purpose, I love having that, and I'll revisit that pretty often as I go through and continue to arrange the rest of the piece. So I hope you enjoy this. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'd love to hear from you, so get active in the comments. If you didn't already know, there's actually 2 music videos out for the Loki arrangement. There's my usual music video where there's me playing, and then I did my first piano roll video. So if you saw one but not the other, go check the other one out. Which kind of videos do you like more? Do you like the piano roll video more? Do you like the regular music video more? Let me know. And also, let me know, do you like hearing about this kind of stuff on the vlog here? Do you want to hear more in-depth than this? Do you want to go less in-depth than this? Yeah, just let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and take it easy, and I'll see you next time.